We're going to build on our foundation from Lesson 1 and introduce the four fundamental forces that act on a helicopter in flight: lift, weight, thrust, and drag. These forces are always present. Our job as pilots is to manage their balance. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to define the four forces of flight, understand how each force interacts with the others, and recognize how control inputs change that balance. We're not just memorizing definitions here, we're understanding cause and effect. Because every control movement you make directly influences one or more of these forces. Every helicopter in flight is governed by four aerodynamic forces. Lift acts upwards. Weight acts downwards. Thrust moves the helicopter in a chosen direction, and drag resists that movement. If you remember from Lesson 1, we talked about smooth, disciplined control inputs. That discipline matters because abrupt inputs don't just move controls, they disrupt the force balance. Flight is simply managing these forces in equilibrium. Lift is the force that acts upwards on the helicopter and opposes weight. In a helicopter, lift is generated by the rotor system as air flows over the blades. When we raise the collective, we increase the blade pitch, which increases lift. If lift becomes greater than weight, the helicopter climbs. If lift equals the weight, we hover. The rotor system is doing the work. Weight is the force of gravity pulling the helicopter downward. It opposes lift. Weight includes the aircraft, fuel, passengers, and cargo. Unlike lift, weight doesn't change because of control input. It's a constant force we must overcome. Remember from Lesson 1, altitude is stored energy. The higher we are, the more potential energy we have available. That only exists because lift has overcome weight. If lift decreases, gravity converts that stored energy into motion, and we begin to descend. Thrust is the force that propels the helicopter in a particular direction. It opposes drag. In a helicopter, thrust is created by tilting the rotor disc. When we apply forward cyclic, the total lift vector tilts forward. That forward component becomes thrust. The rotor system produces both lift and thrust, depending on how we orient it. Again, control discipline matters here. Drag is the force that resists movement in any direction. It opposes thrust. Air flows across the fuselage, landing gear, mast, and tailboom. Resistance is created as a result. The faster we move, the greater the drag. To maintain airspeed, thrust must equal drag. To accelerate, thrust must then exceed the drag. Every movement forward requires overcoming that resistance. What you're seeing here is the rotor system beginning to move air. Even before we lift off, the helicopter is already interacting with the atmosphere. This downward acceleration of air is what creates lift, but right now lift does not exceed weight. The helicopter is still resting on the skids because weight is still greater than the lift. Throughout this demonstration, we're going to watch how lift, weight, thrust, and drag interact, and how small control inputs rebalance those forces. The rotor system doesn't create separate forces. It creates one primary force, lift, and we redirect it depending on what we want the aircraft to do. Right now we are building lift, but we haven't exceeded the weight. I am now increasing collective. Increasing collective increases blade pitch. As the blade pitch increases, lift increases. And now lift exceeds weight. The helicopter becomes airborne. Right now, we're in ground effect. Notice how the airflow interacts with the surface below the aircraft. The ground reduces the strength of the rotor downwash and induced flow. Because of that, the helicopter requires slightly less power to hover close to the surface. I'm continuing to increase collective to climb out of the ground effect. As we move higher, that cushion of air is reduced. Induced flow increases. More power is required to maintain the hover. Now we're in a stable hover out of ground effect. In this condition, lift and weight are equal, and the aircraft is not climbing. It's not descending, the forces are balanced. Now I'm going to gently apply forward cyclic. When I apply forward cyclic, the rotor disc tilts forward. Part of that lift still acts upward, as you can see, balancing weight. The forward portion of the lift now becomes thrust. Thrust is what propels the helicopter forward. As we begin to move forward, drag increases. Drag opposes thrust. The faster we go, the greater the drag force becomes. In steady forward flight, lift still equals weight, and thrust equals drag. The helicopter is simply balancing two opposing force pairs. Control inputs don't create new forces. They redirect and rebalance the ones that already exist. Every maneuver in a helicopter is simply rebalancing of the four forces: lift, weight, thrust, and drag. The core takeaways from this lesson are this: lift opposes weight, thrust opposes drag, control inputs change the force balance. When you raise the collective, you change lift. When you move the cyclic, you redirect thrust. Master the forces, and you master the helicopter. I hope you found this lesson helpful. If there are any topics you'd like to see covered in future lessons, feel free to leave a comment below. And if this added value to your training, consider liking the video so I know to continue building this series. Until next time, take care.